which is
sorry, forgot about it.
can no worries. I just got it. And so you guys are all familiar with Level Up, right? Every year, and so this year we are working on something called My Digital Creativity Festival. This is a big event that happens throughout the entire month of September. And what is My DCF actually? My Digital Creativity Festival, or My DCF for short, is basically Level Up combined with Creative, which is the animation version of Level Up. And we added on a bunch of other activities like a career and job fair, esports tournaments, some licensing fair where I think you can buy some cool merchandise and stuff, design workshops, as well as social media content. So social media content part, it's I think will be an opportunity to meet up upcoming influencers that are in the space, right, in the game space. So for those of you that are not familiar, Level Up, Level Up's the conference, games industry conference that from Malaysia and Southeast Asia. And there's also where we do the Southeast Asia Game Awards, Game Jam, and there's also an expo then most years. So this year will be the same actually. So I'm just gonna go run through like a bunch of activities that's going to be happening. So this first part is the calendar of events for the industry, and we start off with an opening and media session, and this is really all the formality talks by our minister and so forth. And then there's also where we plan to make announcements of any of the big games that are going to be launching, or there's going to be new studios that are setting up in the country. So it's a good, this will be where we will be making these announcements. Next, on the 3rd of September, we have Creativity at Schools Awards. So Creativity at Schools, for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a high school program where high school students, they go through a program and they build games and animations as well, and then submit those games for a competition, and this is the award to celebrate it. So I think the program is right now also available online if you are a high school student, or you don't even it's a high school student. You can access this through the Delima platform. Next up, from the 6th to 10th, is the Business Connection Program. So this is our B2B networking event. So similar like last year, it's all held online on a virtual platform, and you can then meet up and with other people, connect, and have meetings with them. There's also a new blockchain conference. It's kind of a side event. We're going to be introducing how blockchain can impact the game space and the digital content space, opportunities to meet the technologies as well as the people that are pioneering this space, right, in the region. So some of the Malaysian companies, the Filipino companies, and some Singaporean companies as well. On the 11th, we have a games workshop. So this is basically a workshop around some game education stuff. I don't think the team has finalized what the workshop is, so it's just there as a placeholder for now. We also have the Southeast Asia Game Jam, which happens on the 11th and 12th. I think there are details on how you can participate in this later on. And then on 21st to 21st and 22nd is the main conference days. So we've got an interesting lineup of speakers again. We've got some of the console platform guys coming to share some interesting news. Quite a lot of interesting speakers lined up again this year. Can't say much yet. Just still finalizing the details on this. And then on 23rd is the Level Up KL Pitch Day. So this is an opportunity to pitch to your project and ideas to publishers and investors, and hopefully get those projects funded. And then on the 24th, we have the SEA Games Award ceremony. and on 27, 28 is C Connect, and 29 is C Graph KL. So those two are partner programs. We probably have a couple more partner programs. So those are programs that are, how do we, there's like kind of sub events within the Level Up Festival month, the MyDCF Festival month. So we are actually working with a couple more partners, and hopefully we can populate this with more interesting content. So these are for the industry. So if you're a developer or a publisher or anyone that's involved in the industry. Now the next one is for the public day. I'm going to skip number 1, which is the same thing. And on the 4th and 5th, we have a Level Up KL Junior Cup. That's an esports tournament. If I'm not mistaken, it's either Mobile Legends or PUBG. I forgot which tournament that one is. And then we have the career fair that I talked about.
What do you want me to fucking say, seriously?
Was that a question or someone's mic turning on? Okay. Anyway, so we've got again the career fairs, esports conference, which we're going to be working with likely with the MESF, the Esports Federation, and then we've got more esports tournaments. The licensing program is really like a merchandising and licensing fair. So I think this one is still working with the partner on the details, but likely it's opportunity to buy like some cool merchandise. That's the hope there. And then there's these esports tournaments, and then there's the comic convention also, and we're working with Comic Fiesta closely for this one. Get to meet cosplayers and stuff. So a whole bunch of public events. And while all of this happening, I think it's not stated here. It's like from the 1st to the 30th, right? If you were around last year, you would have probably encountered our gamified expo platform. So the platform is slated to be running from the 1st to 30th. So it's it's kind of a 2D platformer where you can explore the expo in a gamified setting. So meet a lot of different, and hopefully we get recruit most of you developers to showcase your stuff in that expo as well. All right, so that's pretty much covers it. I have problems with my audio. I am not going to play this video. I think if someone else, I'll probably share a link to it later. And then there is, what else do I have? Oops. Let's skip this. Then, yep, and then I talked about the SEA Game Awards and the SEA Game Jam. So SEA Game Awards is already open. I think the deadline for it is on 2nd of August. And the SEA Game Jam is also open. And the deadline, I think Sean is coordinating this together with us through IGDA. And yeah, but last and not least, I want to mention also that we are running this game industry research, and we're looking for more participations. I think it's closing very soon on the 16th of July, and if you will actually get a free pass to Level Up, the business and conference pass for filling up this survey and helping out with the industry report. So I hopefully you guys can fill up this survey and contribute to our greater knowledge, right, of the industry. So if you guys have any questions, this is Adeline's email and Alia's email from my team, and they'll be more than happy to I guess support you guys. Yep, I'm pretty much done for this, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Muad. Just a quick question. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? I got some. The first of which is the SEA Game Awards is upcoming. It's upcoming already.
Yeah.
People can register for it just by going to the website, right?
Yeah, I think there's a form up. You can Adeline or Alia help me out. You guys have the link?
Or maybe I can get the links from them and I can share.
Yeah, I think they can share. I think Alia shared the award link on the chat.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's great. Yeah, and also this one later for Sean. Sean, I know it's a bit all of a sudden, right? Would you like to talk about the C Game Jam? I'm putting you in the spotlight a bit. But if you want to plug it, I think if you're full house already, then I guess it's okay. But if you still want to plug it a bit more, right? Yeah. Does Sean say anything? Oh, no, okay.
He just put a smiley face there. Is it a smiley face or?
This is that face. Okay, never mind. Think about it. But the C Game Jam is open for registrations now, right? Links will be up in a bit lah. And it's already up already, but we'll just remind you all constantly lah. All right. Yeah. So if there are any other questions from the participants, Edison's asking, what about the dev survey form? I think for Adeline, I think.
Yeah. So the dev survey form was, I think, on just now as well. I think Daryl is there. Is that Daryl shared the link? Yeah.
Yeah.
Daryl actually shared the link already.
Okay.
So thanks, Daryl.
Yeah. Is there anything from anyone else? Then we can proceed to our next speaker for the day. Next. Noah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ivan.
All right. Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to our guest from Vietnam. All right. Tuan Nguyen. All right. Who is from Vietnam and is responsible for business development in Zingfront or SocialPeta. I mean, so Zingfront is the parent company. SocialPeta is the company that's involved with BizDev lah. All right. So he's got some insights and updates about game markets from the perspective of advertisers and creatives, which is also another area which local game developers sometimes, especially in this, we want to make the game that we want to make first and foremost, right? But also good to come in from the angle of like knowing the market and finding out what people want. Right. So yes, I can just pass the session on to Mr.
All right, I will share my screen.
Yeah, let me just make you spotlight you. Okay.
All right, everybody can see my screen, right? Okay, again, I'll start my presentation. Thank you, Ivan, for the introduction. My name is Tuấn, based in Vietnam, and of course, responsible for the activity of business development for Zingfront. Our product name SocialPeta is actually a tool for checking, collecting and analyzing all the creative in advertising network around the world. So today I bring here with the our new report for the first half of 2021 on C mobile game advertisement. Let's move to the next page. All right, my presentation will include three main parts. The first one, of course, a review of C mobile games advertisement, and the second one will focus more on the activity of media buying for Southeast Asia mobile game, and the last one will talk a bit about SocialPeta and why analyzing creative is getting more and more important at the moment. Let's get started. Then the first one of my presentation, an overview of C mobile game advertisement in the first segment of this year. All the data we taken from our tool SocialPeta, and at the moment it covers 6 countries in the region, including Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. So at the first step, I would like to talk about some general information in terms of the number of advertisers, or specifically the number of games and number of creative that I use to do the advertising for those games. And you can clearly see here, the number of game actually see a decrease of 17% compared to the first half of last year, 2020, from 12.4,000 decrease to 10.3,000. That decrease might be a result of several reasons. So the first reason, I think, App Store and Google Play just make it more and more difficult for studio, for publisher to get their game approved on the platform. And from the customer perspective, customer require higher quality games, so the studio and also publisher need to invest more time, more resources into making a game, making a product that can meet customer demand at the moment. So the number of game actually decreased. But you can see, surprisingly, the number of creative increased pretty much, around 260% from 2.2 to 7.5 million, which means, studio and publisher, they are more willing to run more advertisement, to invest more creative to help to make the game uh, closer to the target customer, and also have a better conversion rate, and also of course get more money, right? So which means the advertising market is getting tougher and tougher, and competition is hard. Then in this page we'll see the average number of game and creative every day from January to June of this year. Obviously, there is an upward trend from January to early April, and a downward trend from early April to June in terms of game number and creative quantity also. As a peak, we can see it lies at the end of March and early April with around 6,000 games were active, and also around 4 million creative are used to do the advertising for all those games. Then from country to country, as mentioned above, among 6 countries, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam, data from SocialPeta show that there is very small differences between among those countries in terms of game number and also creative number. But Malaysia and Thailand make the top two, because I think at the moment Malaysia and Thailand are quite mature market in the region. Of course, Singapore is also very mature, but the size of the market is quite small, right? But in the near future, I think Indonesia with the big population, or the Philippines or Vietnam can compete a lot for the top two position. Then we move to next page with the analysis for the game category. So it's similar to other regions around the world. Casual game, which are small game and simple game, make the number one position with approximately 15.4%. And RPG games surprisingly ranked number two, accounting for 12.6%. It is very unusual because in other region around the world, for example, it's Asia, South Asia, Europe, or America, RPG normally cannot make top three or even top five. But in here, South Asia, RPG make rank number two. So it presents a huge opportunity for any publisher to invest in a good RPG game and publish here in South Asia to earn money. RPG game, they can earn a lot of money for publisher. And then followed by a puzzle, arcade, simulation, action game you can all see on the screen. Then on the right side of my screen, we can take another perspective at this analysis. Have you ever wondered how many creative are used to do the advertising for one specific game? So those figures are presented here on my screen. Sorry, you cannot see this clearly. This one is strategy, and then casual, and then RPG, action, puzzle, simulation, and so on. So with the figure, you can guess that in order to do the advertising strategy or campaign for one strategy game, normally a publisher need to invest around 1,145 creative. The reason for this high number is because maybe strategy game, it's very difficult to get new player or retain current player, so they have to update, they have to renew the creative frequently to do that, followed by casual and RPG game with the same policy, right? Then the next page we talk a little bit about the code. Code is always playing a very important role in any advertising campaign. So now from the data of SocialPeta, we can take a look at three main index which are CPC, CPM, and CTR from January to May of this year. Those data are from Facebook network. You can see the average CPC was 0.31 US dollar with a little with a little change, a little increase on in February. But for CPM, there is a big fluctuation, especially a high increase in February, which was, Lunar New Year. And in Southeast Asia, many people celebrate the Lunar New Year. So no wonder why the cost of advertising increased that much during that February, right? And along with CPM, CTR also fluctuated accordingly, and averagely were 1.65%. Now, after talking very generally about all, the market, I would like to take this also occasion to talk specifically about some very popular game in Malaysia. Based on our data from SocialPeta, we take the first example, Thai Magic. This game is actually, targeting the female and children player. So in the creative, normally designer will present a very cute images of animal, puppy, or some food that have a high attraction to target customer. That's why those kind of very, I think, very simple creative perform very well over the time to to have this game stay on top of the chart. Then another game would like to analyze is the game named Super Farmer. This one is a simulation game with an iconic image of a cow. So every creative of this game, they normally present the cow. So the viewer every time they see the cow, they can remember the game Super Farmer. That is a very good way to let your game get into the mind of your customer. Then next to the cow, there will be there is a button play now as a stimulation or encouragement for target customer to click, download, install, and play. That's why this kind of creative also perform very well. Now, this is the second part of my presentation. We will take a look at the activity of media buying for Southeast Asia mobile game in the first half of 2021. Generally, everybody know that our Southeast Asia region is quite a big market with around 650 million people, and among them, 380 million people are internet users. So it is a very potential market for any game publishing company. But we have like 10 or 11 different countries in the region. So there are many differences in terms of culture, in terms of what people like and economy. So one difficulty that the publisher have here is the localization of their game, how to better fit, how to present their game in a way that attract more customer in different regions. That's why SocialPeta can help them with all the data, right? And also one more thing, our neighbor China, Southeast Asia also one of the most popular overseas market for Chinese game. We'll see about that in the next slide. So now, as I talked in my first part of the presentation, the number of creative increased a lot from the period of, here we show the data from July 2020 to June 2021. From the period of July 2020 to April 2021, the number of creative increased by 5 times. So the competition of creating more creative and marketing is getting tougher and tougher. That's why creative now play a very important role in the success of the game launching. Now this is a slide showing the top 10 popular game in South Asia for the first 6 months of this year. So the ranking were based on the number of creative used to do the advertising for those games. Because there are many creative, so the game rank higher, right? You can see here, most of them are casino game, RPG or SLG, but one clear side that most of the position here belong to the game from Chinese company. For example, Jackpot World belong to Bowler Game, no? Gapo, Chở Trên Network, Idol Art, Hãng Châu, and One Punch Man, Our Palm, Rise of Kingdom, so on. So you can see the domination of Chinese publisher here in South Asia. And I also take an example of a specific game in the lead, One Punch Man. This is an RPG game, so mainly target anime, audiences. So not only this game, but also own the game in the RPG category. When doing the creative, there's normally video showing some special thing about the game, some character, skill, and graphic, and let the viewer know what they can expect when they download, install, and play the game. So now let's take a look at this creative video. Yeah, I think this creative is quite commonly seen among those RPG game created, and it gets performed quite well with estimated impression 2 million, right? Okay, let's move to my last part of the presentation. We'll talk about SocialPeta, our product a little bit. As I mentioned in my introduction, SocialPeta is a tool for checking, like summarizing, and also analyzing all the creative used in the advertising campaign of a game. So now with SocialPeta, the user can have creative inspiration, or they can check the new product, the competitor strategy, and also stay updated of the market movement. So how can SocialPeta do that? With SocialPeta, we offer the user around 1 billion ad data with a million daily update every day. So our data cover 5.1 million advertisers around the world in 62 countries with 70 advertising channel, with all those multidimensional and in-depth advertiser analysis and exclusive data intelligence. I believe that the user of SocialPeta can have a better revelation for their advertising campaign for the launching games with, of course, the lowest possible cost. SocialPeta is actually divided into two versions. The first one, global version, covering all the global advertising network except for China. We can see all the here Facebook, Google, all the network that you can possibly think of, and we also have some localized network for Korea and Japan region. Then about the China version, we cover all big network there in China: ByteDance, Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, Bilibili, Xiaomi, IQE. So on those networks. Then this one shows some partner of SocialPeta, not only in China but also around the world. Of course, for me in Vietnam, we have BNG, Contact, Soha Game, and VTC Mobile. They are quite big and leading company game company in the market. They have been using SocialPeta and have appreciated it a lot. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. If you have any question, please put it in the Q&A. Thank you. Now I give it back to Ivan. Ivan, you forgot to turn on your mic.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, my cat was meowing here. Yeah, so there got some questions from the audience. First of which is, did Genshin Impact have a significant impact on RPG downloads in the chart? Because they said what RPGs happens to be the second largest spend, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So was Genshin Impact something that made an impact, I guess, in that sense? Yeah.
All right.
Because from the data now, it looks like everyone's going to be making casual puzzle RPGs, right? So,
Yeah, everyone making those kind of games.
so how much of impact did Genshin Impact have on the RPG demographic?
RPG demographic?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I cannot. I kind of
Oh, sorry.
understand your question.
The Pechi. You want to ask the question? Okay, never mind.
Genshin Impact.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Someone asked, what does casual, what would constitute casual games?
So game. So by the definition, I would like to find a book, but for me, to be easy to understand, casual is quite simple game that we can download and play every day. Very small game, like shooting some duck, maybe falling casual game, and just play some cards. It's also considered casual game. Yeah, just small and simple game.
It's
Like that.
small and simple game, all right? Thanks. Does anyone else have any questions? Hold on. No. Okay, wait. Okay, so the first question was they refined the question a bit. Was Genshin Impact very popular during the time you collected data for the chart? Yeah.
I think this is very popular. Normally seen in our tool SocialPeta. People normally use that to do the advertising for those kind of game RPG.
All right. Thanks. Anyone has got any other questions? Let me admit a few people in first. Hold on. All right. No, I think that's about all the questions. How can people get in touch with you? Come on. If someone wants
I believe that Cha Hong give you some information, right? So you can give Cha Hong.
Okay, all right. So maybe I'll share the information if someone wants to get in touch with you to find out more about advertising data and social information. Okay.
All right, that's great.
Thanks a lot. All right. Next up, all right, we have Sakina, co-founder and managing director of Persona Theory Games. Right, they make indie narrative games with a focus on Southeast Asian content. They also do other things on the side like film and experimental exhibitions, but before COVID, of course. So dia tak langgar SOP lah. And last year they released Fires at Midnight, which is available on Steam. Do go grab it if you can. And they're now working on Cabaret with the help of Wings Interactive. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Without further ado, hopefully this works because I'm not very good with Zoom. Is it sharing now?
Yeah, sharing.
Because I don't know what you guys are seeing. Okay, cool. Okay, so my name is Sakina. I am one of the co-founders of Persona Theory Games. So today I'm talking about romancing the myths and legends of Southeast Asia. So, wait, before anything, so yeah, this is me. So Persona Theory, there's 3 founders. There's me, and then there's also Derek and Buddy. So currently we're working on Cabaret, which is what this talk will primarily focus on, but also a minor plug that I'm also helping with the Games for Change Asia Pacific with a few other Malaysian devs here. So that is going on in October, and I think it'll be very interesting for you guys to join in. I'm also giving a longer version of this talk next week on Amaze Berlin. So if you're interested in that. And also we're working on another game called The Lonely Hearts Pet Shop, which we will actually be dropping the demo this Saturday. So without further ado, first thing I want to show is like an introduction of what we do. And this video should kind of show us what we are all about. So I think it'll be interesting for those of you who are not used to seeing the local arts in this way. So I really hope the video works and it's not laggy for you guys. Enjoy.
The volume is a bit low. Huh?
Oh, that's the maximum I can go here. Maybe later on I'll share links so if anyone wants to watch. Okay, so persona theory, we started as filmmakers. Why we want to tell Southeast Asian stories, personally from me, is that I actually grew up mostly outside of Malaysia. So most of my childhood was in London, Hong Kong, Singapore. So a part of me felt that I've always been disconnected to Malaysia and who I am as a Malaysian. So through our work with NGO called Pusaka, if you guys know Edin Khoo and the late Khoo K Kim, we worked closely with them before COVID. You can actually see him here actually in this photo. We worked with them with a lot of the local arts group. So what you're seeing here is the family called the Red Horse family, which they do Kuda Kepang. So we did a lot of film for them, archiving. We did a lot of research with them. So when we did that, that was when I was sort of pulled. I would say there was a calling from this. There was a calling inside me that I felt that I really need to explore this in a game. At that point, we were making Fires at Midnight, and Fires at Midnight, if you didn't know, was also a film script turned into a game. We knew at that point that we wanted to tell Southeast Asian stories, but before Cabaret came along, we wanted to experiment with the local culture and ceremonies that we learned, the arts, the different Tok gurus we met when we were working with Pusaka. So with that in mind, that's how Cabaret came about. So this was one of the groups, the Kuda Kepang group. And then our most recent one was the Mak Yong family called the Cahaya Matahari. We filmed this film, which you can find actually on YouTube under the Vibes, called Angin Keturunan. So it's about the ceremonies that they have, and also if you didn't know, before we actually filmed, there was a decree that Mak Yong was illegal at that point. So there was, when we were filming, there was even a threat that authorities might actually come and raid, and we might all spend our night in lockup. But it didn't happen, which is great. So we got to experience what Mak Yong really was. So for me, when you are there, when you experience this long age arts and long forgotten arts, it's a whole different experience, especially what you think Kelantan women are, because Mak Yong is primarily very matriarchal. They believe in ancestral spirits. They believe in the spirit of the land. So all of these things are things that we incorporated when we did our initial research through when we made Cabaret. Also, one of the main driving force was the Wayang Kulit theater. We watched one which was even helmed by a young boy. We learned about what are the rituals that goes into a Wayang Kulit, the different arts. So there's the difference between like Indonesian Wayang Kulit, Javanese, Malay. So in cabaret, each of the characters will have their own shadows. Every time the lightning strikes, you will see a glimpse of it. And of course, in cabaret, it's actually set in Penang, an uninhabited island in Penang called Pulau Rimau. So we also wanted to showcase the mangroves. Part of the reasons because whenever we travel, we always see the environmental impacts of what is going on. Recently, I read a report that these mangroves in Penang will probably disappear in the next few years. We incorporated a lot of the arts, but one of the things that didn't come from Penang, but we included it in the arts is the Minangkabau roofs, which personally I really, really love. Our early concept arts incorporated a bit of this. We studied different houses, different architecture. Our art director, whose name is Michelle, she tried to think of different ways that the cabaret itself is a character on its own. So when we were working with, when we were traveling before COVID, and we were meeting all these practitioners of the arts, we kept in mind the location, because that's one of the most important thing to a ritual is the location, the story behind it, and why we wanted it to look like this in the end. So it's surrounded by mangroves. There's fireflies. If you guys haven't seen the fireflies in Malaysia, they are really beautiful, but also really scary because everything has to be pitch dark and there are crocodiles in the river. But it is amazing. So we wanted the cabaret to have a bit of Minangkabau style roofs. And in the beginning, we thought that it might be too cultural. Like we've pitched this before so many times locally, and a lot of people were like, it's probably too local, it's too exotic. But when we pitched it to Wings, they were like, this is magical. We've never seen things like this. And that's how Wings started helping us. And that's how I'm actually speaking at Amaze Berlin, who they also look at this and they're like, we've never really seen much of this and they want to know more. So I think for us, we are just very happy to bring out these monsters and these spirits that's been living in our minds, in my heart, for a very long time, and they are finally coming out. Of course, again, we're filmmakers, so we always look at films. The one on the rightmost, Sintagang, it was actually made by one of our founders' grandfather, Jamil Sulong. So we look at classic films from P. Ramlee to our own films. We looked at different wayang kulit arts. We studied the differences between the left is actually Malay wayang kulit, the right is Javanese. A lot of our local traditional arts have roots in Java, so it is not uncommon that a lot of our arts have similarities with Indonesia. Also before COVID, we were about to experiment something with the museum. So it's a shame that that didn't take off, but during our times in the museum, we spent most of our time there, then we were studying what they had there. This is Museum Negara, by the way. I'm sure a lot of you haven't been there in ages. Like the one on the left is this beautiful vest that I've personally never seen, but when we saw it, we were like, we had to put it on one of our characters. It's one of the symbols of Islam coming to Malacca, and then the ones on the right are different wayang kulit and instruments. So we studied the different types of colors and the different shapes that we want to incorporate. And also we look a lot at masks. So the one at the bottom, the second bottom one is Mameri. We also did a video for Pusaka all about the Mameri people. And recently there was this group of people that tried to take the lands of the Mameri, which was not cool. So a lot of this, if you guys could um, help out by sharing the news on Pusaka, what they're trying to do, protecting the people of the Mameri land, people of the Kuda Kepang, the Mayong, that would be great. So the ones on the masks on top are Javanese in nature. So we studied Javanese masks. The ones at the bottom are mostly from what you can find here in Malaysia. So we have a mix of that. Our main character is Jabat. It's not set yet in the game, but since I'm giving a talk about the different monsters that we research, so one of the key fact is that the whole of Southeast Asia have one common theme, which is the Naga. So Jabat is in fact a dragon. So we studied the different types of Nagas that you can be found in Southeast Asia. There are the Thai ones, there are the Cambodians. Cambodian ones are the ones that I personally really like, the one that you can find on the temples. And then of course there's the one of our Malaysia's more famous spirits is called the Harimau Jadian, which translates to were tiger. If you don't know much about Silat, Silat is a Malay Malay martial arts. Traditionally, if you practice the traditional one where you have a whole ritual surrounding it, and if you are connected to a master that teaches you the real silat, you'll be able to hone animal of your own. So Harimau Jadian is one of the many spirit animals that you can embody. So there's the monkey, there's the pig, so there's different types. So it's not everyone can. So the thing about Malaysian or Malay traditional arts like Mak Yong, Kuda Kepang, Wayang, things like that not everyone can just jump in and be a master. So like most of these are passed down through generations of ilmu. So it doesn't mean that you practice silat, you'll be able to call upon the were tiger. Sometimes it just means that you just don't have it in you, which is quite sad. So that's why the traditional arts are suffering a little bit more, because their own blood generation, they don't continue the bloodline. So sometimes arts like the Mat Yong, if there's no more generation after the current one that practices the Mat Yong, then their whole family just stops right there, which is very sad. There's also one character called she's a politician. Her name is Minister. We don't really give her a name. But there's also the jinn that she follows. So this is more of a Malay beliefs. I think a lot of Southeast Asians have the same beliefs as well, especially when it comes to do with people in power, especially when it comes to do with politicians. A lot of people believe that if you are very powerful, and you come from an influential family, you have a family spirit with you. So like jinns are there's different levels of jinns. There are the ones that are passed down through generations. There are the ones that can only be passed down from women to women, so you cannot pass down to a son or a man. There are those that there's specific things that you need to do to pass down. If not, they're not going to be happy and they'll never let you die. So you're like eternally suffering. So this is one of the characters that we have showcased in the current demo, which is the Jinn and the Minister duo. And then because we are talking about a Naga, and you cannot really talk about the Naga without talking about the Naga's mortal enemy, which is the Garuda. So in every Southeast Asian stories, from the wayang kulit to Thai puppets, things like that, the temples, and even Hindu legends. There's always a conflict with Garuda and Nagas. So this is a character that I have not shown ever outside of my own team. So I'm only going to tease the eyes a bit. But he is one of the main characters, and he's somebody that you can ally yourself with, or be a total enemy with. And then, of course, we cannot do a local legend without our most famous one, which is Pontianak. So Pontianak, so a lot of our characters, a lot of our monsters, they all have social issues tied with them. Like most of the time when we study our own monsters, it's always rooted in what was the social issue of that era. Like Pontianaks are largely to do with women who died during childbirth. There are other monsters that has like they were babies born of stillbirth. There were also people who practices witchcraft who were labeled as evil. So things like that are the things that we are exploring. So Pontianak is our Pontianak also suffered from. You play the demo. She suffered from abusive relationships. So it's something we talk about abusive relationships in Malaysia, and also we sort of talk a bit more about baby dumping as an issue. The one on the right is Mayang. She is from the Ulit Mayang legend. So that one has to do with Ulit Mayang. If you heard the famous music, it's a famous performance that sailors used to do to bid them great voyage into the ocean and have protection from this sea spirits. But also, if you listen to the music, then it's actually about the seven sisters and how one of them kidnapped a fisherman. So there's a whole love story behind the music. And I think there's a lot of different versions. There's a modern version of that song as well. These are our monsters from the Philippines. The one on the left is an Ike, and the one on the right is Tibalang. Again, when we were studying monsters, all of them have ties to different social issues. Some of them had to do with you shouldn't disobey your parents, or you shouldn't go out late at night. It's not something will come up. Or some of them have to do with when colonizers were around and they created a monster to scare the colonizers, things like that. So the one on the left is Rangda, and the one on the right is Babi Ngepet. Both of them Indonesian. I think Babi Ngepet also has Malaysian roots, so we have not really spoken much about them yet, but they also have like Rangda is about how back in the day, if women were slightly different, they were definitely the whole village might cast her out as a witch. So it's like what happened to her, and we explore different stories, and you can explore more of this during the gameplay when you challenge her to a game. So the other thing that we did as well is we studied local gameplay. Again, I grew up mostly outside of Malaysia, so I've actually never played the real Chongkak ever before. So when my team really wanted to make a Chongkak into a gameplay, so they were telling me the rules. I was very bad at it initially, but I finally understood how to play the game. So we studied different Chongkak bots, what we want it to be. Personally, we wanted to look at the Dayak, the arts. We wanted to incorporate the colors. So the board has colors from the tribe, and also one of the legends about a very large white crocodile called Bujang Senang. I'm not sure whether many of you know of this legend about this giant white crocodile that terrorized the village. back in the day, and it took the whole a tribe of warriors to take it down. So we wanted every aspect of Cabaret to have a story, from the characters to the environment to even the simple Chongkak board will have a story, and all of this will be showcased at in the full game. So yeah, so that's what we do here in Persona Theory. It's a shame that due to COVID, we couldn't do it the way we initially wanted to do it. If we could, if there was no COVID, I'm pretty sure that we would have taken this whole year traveling around Southeast Asia and making a whole short film about monsters of Southeast Asia. But maybe another time, maybe the sequel, who knows? And I'll end my talk here. You can follow me on all this. Also, next week is Amaze Berlin, which is quite a big game show. So if you want to see the bit longer version of that, or you want to check out all the other talks, you can sign up for Amaze Berlin. Okay.
All right, thanks. You got a lot of questions.
I do? I cannot see the chat, so I'm sorry.
I'm compiling it for you. Okay. So,
okay, cool.
We'll go from the, wow, there's a lot actually.
Oh, okay. okay.
Okay. From Kian Leong. Okay. First question is, how did you know where to seek out all these myths and legends?
Okay, so this is a bit cheating, but I actually spoke to my co-founder Buddy, and I said I want to do things about Southeast Asian culture, and then he was like, "Oh, me and my dad work with someone. His name is Edin Koo. He owns and runs Pusaka," and that was that. So it's all due to because we were in film, so that's why our connection is quite wide, and like if it was a normal person, I think it would be quite difficult to find pusaka. They travel quite a lot, but so yeah, we reached out to Edin Koo. He was very interested to bring us aboard and show us. So every time this was again pre-COVID, every time there was an event, we went with them. We experienced the real Kuda Kepang, Mak Yong. At one point, we even wanted to see the more of the other cultures, but COVID happened. So yeah.
Very cool. Next one from one Amirul. He said, could you explain a bit about having to address the attempts to erase things like Mak Yong as part of its history?
What's the question again?
Right. Could you explain a bit about having to address the attempts to erase things like Mak Yong as part of its history? I think trying to erase the history of Mak Yong.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We don't really address that part in Cabaret because it wasn't one of the I think we only addressed it just a bit because it wasn't one of the main characters that have ties to Mak Yong. It's more of a ceremonial thing, but when you can watch the film, I don't know how to put it. How do I put the link here? Do I put it in type message here?
You can share to me after the event. I will send out a mail and then
okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, can. So I think it's best that you watch the film because there was a whole story about how they felt about it. That was the most important. It was quite sad to.
Oops. Oh, sorry. I actually mute you by mistake. Sorry. Sakina, you need to press the unmute button. Yeah, bottom left.
Unmute? Okay.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So I will share the link with Ivan and you guys can experience, and I think Mekti and the women of the group will say it better than me for sure.
All right. She asks, when adapting Southeast Asian folklore into games, was there any personal favorite folk tales or monsters that you really wanted to connect with the audience, right? And why do you think the current audience would relate to or need to know more about that particular monster?
I am quite my team knows this. I am very biased to Caretaker and Garuda. Garuda, I can't really talk much about. But Caretaker, one of the reasons because I wrote him the most, and also because I just, when looking at Kuda Kepang, when you see them embody the tigers and all that, when they, it's like they get that, they call it semangat, when they get the semangat of the tiger, it's really something else. It's something amazing and beautiful for me to see. They become almost like otherworldly. Like if I could show you the videos, maybe I'll share some to Ivan what it really feels like. But I really wanted people to know more about the caretaker. One, because he embodies a lot of the traditional Malay culture and arts. Two is because of our tigers. He also represents our tigers, which is dying. So I really wanted everyone to relate to his story. About his story is more tragic, as something to do with loss, and also if you, there's a whole belief that if you get a were tiger, you can make them do things against their will, things like that. So he had a whole backstory to do with that, and it's about being taken advantage of. So so yeah, a lot of them have tragic stories, and a lot of them have to do with our own cultures and what is happening in Southeast Asia. So yeah, I hope that answered the question, but I'll share more videos.
All right, thanks. Got one last question. There's a few more, but I think I need to cut it short a little bit. They're asking, so Han Chan Lee's asked, with multiple writings, renditions, and variation of the same monster in Southeast Asia, how did you choose which ones to stick to? Did the differing variants affect how the final designs came to as well?
This one is mostly for design thing that Michelle, our art director, decided on. So she incorporated like with Jabat, who is a mixture of Cambodian and Thai Naga in design. Um, it is more of a preference to her, I believe. So we put all the research together. Like there's a deck full of different nagas all around Southeast Asia, but by and large they're quite similar. So we try not to make it too obvious that it is Cambodian or Thai, but aspects of it have been incorporated, but also we try to make it look like it is a Southeast Asian monster.
All right, great. I hope that answered the questions. Someone just asked whether they can message you on Twitter if they have more pressing questions.
Yeah. Also, we are very active on Discord, so we have a whole dedicated section for Cabaret if anyone wants to ask. I'm very active, so I'll probably be the one answering them. I'll send the link again.
All right, cool. All right, thanks so much, Sakina.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to the next person. Let me just. All right. Next up would be Kelvin Ho. All right, who's a sound designer from Malaysia, graduate from Lim Kok Weng with a bachelor's degree in sound and music design. Previously did live sounds, which he did audio post productions, and then just got into game audio with Hello Universe. Right, his huge love of music and video games has led him to this new field. Right, so take it away, Kelvin.
Hi guys, hope everyone's doing all right. So I'm Kelvin. I am the senior sound designer in Hello Universe, and today we'll mainly be talking about game audio and the importance of game audio. A bit of pre-context before we start. I will not be going super in depth into game audio and like my processes and stuff like that. I think that's for another day. This presentation will mainly be like the general, like a really vague introduction into game audio, and why it's important to have good audio in your games, right? So, all right. So what is game audio? So game audio is basically everything as a player, everything that you hear within the game or any interactable media. It doesn't have to be a game per se, as long as it's a non-linear media. So what I mean by non-linear media, normally in media we have two distinguishable types, which is linear and non-linear. So in linear, it's basically like a video that you see on YouTube or anywhere. Whenever you rewind to a particular spot, the outcome is always the same. So you always get, if at 30 seconds there is a car explosion, every time you wind back to 30 seconds, there will be a car explosion, and it's always expected. So there's that form of predictability, right? Whereas in nonlinear media, like in games, the reason why audio is so powerful is because of its non-predictability. So every player that plays one game might experience it differently from everyone else. So that is the main difference between game audio and traditional audio. So within that, it's mainly split into two segments. So you have your sound effects, or SFX as we call it, and music. Narration and VO does take part in game audio, but that is situational, depending on the game, if it has a narrator or if it has VO or not. All right, moving on. So why should game developers think about sound? From my experience, at least working with a lot of game devs, I've sort of noticed this trend whereby a lot of game devs see audio as like the last link in the chain, right? Everyone sort of focuses on narrative, story, the graphics, how it looks, and at the end of the chain, there's like audio where it's like in this small little hole whereby everything's done, and you're like, oh, you're playing the game and like, oh, I probably need to think about sound now. All right, so why do we need sound? Why do we need good sound in our game? So I split it into three main factors that all ties to each other and ultimately will result in a better gameplay experience for everyone. So the first stop is story. So good sound definitely helps enhance narratives or even moods of the game. So with the use of SFX, music, or even a narrator, it enhances the immersion factor, which we'll get to a bit later on. So as a player, you are fully, it helps you understand the story a bit better. Whether or not that be through music, like with Journey, the game, like it has an amazing soundtrack, right? And you're just sort of brought into this world, and the music just carries it, right, as you play it through. The second factor I would say is that good sound and music can be used as an extra tool for game developers to create games. A really good example of this would be EVE Online. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of EVE Online. EVE Online is basically like a large-scale multiplayer game, right? Whereby you build your own ship and you go on like this huge Star Wars scale like battles. It's amazing. If you have not seen it, do check it out. So in EVE Online, the sound designer for the game, I can't remember his name. I think it was Anderson Bjorgen or something. So he in an interview he mentioned that he intentionally included sound effects so that when you are traveling star systems and you're trying to figure out which star system is the least populated so that you don't get raided. So whenever you go and hover over a star system or a solar system, right, there will be a sound effect or a sound cue to tell you how much, to sort of give a rough gauge of how many people are in that particular solar system. So it's that use of sound that allows you to not just use sound as like another asset, but to sort of incorporate it into your game and to sort of give reason to your players as well to use sound to turn on that that music volume or the SFX volume, right? And the last factor, but the main factor I believe would be immersion. Nowadays, you know, every game wants you to be immersed. I believe that is probably like the main goal of playing a game. You want to be immersed into that world that you're playing, right? And with sound and with audio, it definitely helps breathe life into the world that you are brought into. And all these factors will ultimately sort of lead to a better gameplay experience for everyone, right? So I'll jump right into how we normally do things in game audio. The main processes that we go through. I've split it into 3 stages mainly. So we have pre-production, production, and testing. So in the pre-production phase, this is mainly between the lead sound designer and the developers. So let's just say if you have an idea and you come to us and you tell us about your game, right? So we'll sort of bounce ideas back and forth. We'll tell you what we think, and sort of you'll give us your opinions and we'll talk about inspirations. We'll look into artwork. We'll look into if there's any lore or if there's any narrative. We'll look into it and we'll sort of discuss it thoroughly, so that we sort of create like this direction that we all can agree on. We also do previous audio or visualization. So for me, when I work with developers, what I normally would do is I would have game capture of sort of like the basic game, and I would start putting sounds that I think might work. So it's a lot of experimentation. It's a lot of trial and error, and based on that, I would show it to the lead sound designer, and of course the developers. And from there, we'll sort of work things out. We'll see whether this works or that works, right? So that this phase, the pre-production phase, involves a lot of experimentation, just a lot of trial and error. So once the direction is set, we'll sort of go into production. So that's where we do field recordings. We'll record sounds that we need for the game. We'll start making assets. We'll do a lot of sound design. Audio implementation is also what we can do, or some will do, depending on situation. And we do in-game mixing, which is also within audio implementation. Yeah. And lastly, we will carry out testing. So we'll play the game through and through. We'll try to fix any issues that we see along the way, bug solving, and just overall trying to refine the audio if we have to. Yeah. So that is the main process that that's the main workflow that we have for in making a game. So why should you hire a sound designer for your game? Why not just buy SFX off SoundSnap, off Splice? We're so where all these SFX are readily available to the public through the internet. Why should we go to a game audio provider, right? So first of all, you have less headaches, obviously. As game developers, I believe you guys have so much to deal with when it comes to making a game. And taking audio out of the equation will definitely ease your burden. Secondly, you'll have more time to work on what you want. You don't have to sort of worry about it towards the end, and you have to crunch, and you just have to churn it out just because you've sort of set audio at the site in the beginning. And lastly, we are also able to provide creative solutions to your problems. What I mean can be licensing for music that you use for your game, or maybe audio direction if you're a bit lost. We can definitely help you out with our experiences. We can sort of talk things through, and we can sort of give you a clearer picture sonically on how it might work. Yeah. And that concludes my talk for today. It's a really brief introduction into game audio and what we do as sound designers. But if you would like to go a bit more in depth, you can always reach me. You can always reach out for me, my Instagram, Twitter, or you can just email me in person, and I'll gladly, reply your questions. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Someone says nice email.
Thank you. I had to. It took me a while to think about it.
All right. Okay. So Q&A. One Amiro asks, have you ever had a cliche moment of suddenly being inspired by something from your everyday life and putting it into a finished product?
Yes, I have. Contrary to belief, this happens more often than you think. As a sound designer, I'm always inspired by the things around me. Like I jog a lot, obviously before MCO, and when I jog, I usually carry my phone with me, or I usually carry my phone with me. And sometimes when you're out and about, you hear things that sort of pique your interest, and you just go and record stuff. Sometimes I'll be just like eating, and I'll just make like a really weird sound, and I'll be like, oh, like this sounds really cool, and I'll just go record it. I think as a sound designer, you have to have that constant passion and just drive to sort of be open to listen to what's around you constantly. And I think that really helps you to get better perspective and just in general ideas for your future work or anything like that. Yeah.
All right. Sean asks, does Hello Universe work with middleware like WWise and Fmod?
Yes, we do work with middleware. We work with Wise and Fmod. We do have a programmer with us. His name is Michael. So he is well versed in Fmod and Wise. Me personally, I am half on Wise and Fmod. I'm still learning because I've gotten I feel like I'm only starting to get into game audio personally. But yeah, we do have a programmer that can implement.
So not so wise yet.
Yes, not so wise yet. Yes, for me at least.
All right, but so he follows up with, are there any benefits of using them?
I think for Wise definitely, or Fmod, I feel like you get a bit more control. My personal experiences with Unity has not been really good. In terms of Unreal Engine, however, with the new UE5 and Meta Sounds, I have not tried that personally, but that might sort of change the game in how we sort of use middleware, or whether or not we need to use middleware anymore. But personally, it does help with workflow, and it definitely makes things a bit easier to control on our end.
All right, hold on. Sorry, I got swamped. All right, I think one more question, and then we have to move on now. All right.
Right.
What is the last game that you or Hello Universe have worked on in terms of sound, which is currently out? And
the last game that we worked on.
Yeah.
The last game that I clearly remember working on was definitely with Sakina from Persona Theory, which was Fires at Midnight actually. So we worked on audio for that game, and I have a really interesting story to tell. I can always see Sakina laughing right now, but yeah. So the last game that I clearly remember doing was definitely Fires at Midnight. Yeah, we'll save that story for another time, I guess.
We will hold you to it.
Yes, for sure. Maybe another time.
I mean, so you guys can see his social media links. Therefore, feel free to slide into his DMs.
Yes, I will definitely reply you.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, cool. Hold on, just before the next one. Oh, just a quick follow-up, right? Hello Universe, how many games have they worked on so far? Someone asked about that.
So far.
Completed missions, apparently.
Yes, you can definitely check out our completed missions on our website, hellouniverse.net.
Okay, I found it. Let me read out. Gigabash, Relegend, Battle Royale, World of Legends, Kings League 2, Light Tracer, Volume, and Spin Racers. So that's quite a lot. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question from the audience. All right. So thanks very much, Calvin. We're going to move on to the next speaker because we are running on time as well, and we keep track. Cash, are you there?
Yo.
All right. So let me just introduce Cash. So Cash allowed me to write his introduction, which you will regret. He's basically he's basically the game director of Hidden Chest Studios. Hidden Chest Studio, correct? Studios with S, right? All right.
Yep.
Game developer by day, monster chef by night, founder of a band of intrepid developers who's striving to bring back one of my personal favorite genres in his latest project, Midwest 90 Rapid City. Yeah, so okay, not too bad, right?
And not too bad, but what to regret.
Okay, the next one, you wait.
Okay, the next one.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, so can I go ahead and start? Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, hi guys. Hope everybody's had a nice dinner and everything. So my name is Kish, and today I'm going to be talking about monsters in the Midwest, basing games on real life locations. And I'm from Hidden Chest Studios. We develop immersive games for explorers and adventurers. And we are currently working on a new game right now. But just before I get into that, I want to show you just a little bit of our team. I'm Kish Ganaswaran, the game director, and also the game designer. And my partners are Alex Tan and Tan Yi Meng. And we also have a support crew which consists of Shen Chong, who is our narrative designer, and Ivan Smith, who's our creative and art director. And before I get into talking about our topic about the Midwest, I want to tell you a bit about the whole inspiration behind us working on the game Midwest 90 Rapid City, and why is it based on a real life location. So I have a consultant. His name is Kevin Woon Can Lee, and he is the owner of Betty's Midwest Kitchen in Petaling Jaya. And it was during one visit to his restaurant when I was eating one of his burgers, I started wondering, okay, what happens if like monsters were attacking the restaurant on the outside, right? And then took it one step further. I was thinking, what happens if you kill the monsters that were attacking your restaurant and then serve their meat for food? So that basically is the genesis of the idea of Midwest 90 Rapid City, our restaurant management game. So it's a restaurant management game of monster cuisines. You basically run a restaurant. It's a restaurant tycoon game, but with the added elements of strong emphasis on stories, and of course, the monsters also attack your restaurant. Now, I would love to talk a little bit more about the game and everything like that, but I'll just go through it very briefly because today's topic is on real life locations. But the first thing I did when after eating the burger at my friend Kevin's restaurant, was I came back home and I started drawing this piece that you're seeing in front of you, and because I wanted to capture that whole mood and the whole feel that I got from eating in his restaurant. And as you can see here, the idea is to have something like a diner, but it's not really a diner. It's more like a steakhouse actually. And then serving food on the outside in America, in the middle of nowhere, in a small town, and outside there are monsters just lurking, waiting to break into the restaurant and hurt and kill people. But so that was basically the whole genesis of what I had going for this game. And it all started from this particular drawing painting which I did. And of course, like I said, the Midwest restaurant. And another thing also occurred to me when I was doing this. I had no idea where the Midwest was in America. But anyway, I'll get to that to you in a second. Just to talk a little bit more about the game. It's a restaurant, like I mentioned, it's a restaurant management game. You cook and you sell monster dishes. You get some money, and then you expand your restaurant, and then you can go to a marketplace where you can purchase more monster meat. And you can research them to unlock more dishes, and you can also invest in certain investments from with vendors who will give you benefits for your restaurant. So that's basically the whole game loop for the game. But at the same time, of course, you can see here, you have to survive monster attacks. And the main themes of the game that we were going for is a strong sense of Americana, food, and of course, monsters. So back to the thing, why real life location lah? Okay, like most games, set in space, set in fantasy world, or set in a post-apocalyptic world and everything. So, but ours is not a post-apocalyptic game. Ours is actually set in the future, but in a real life location, which is Rapid City. So, why a real life location lah? Well, because I'm not very creative. So, like I mentioned before, I was thinking about Midwest. I didn't even know where the Midwest was. So what happened was I just started going and researching a lot about the Midwest. And what I learned about the whole thing is that real life locations help me use history and interesting places to tell stories. And number two is to find local dishes as inspiration. And number three, real life references for art. So that's one of the biggest things that help me when basing a game on a real life location. And back to again, why Rapid City? So again, when I'm going to go back to the point where I was talking about the Midwest. This is the Midwest in America. It's boring. Most people, when they talk about America, they talk about New York City or California or Florida, or Texas, big oil place and everything. But very few people do talk about the Midwest in America. And there's a good reason for it. The Midwest is kind of boring. And when I was researching it, all those red states over there, couldn't find anything really interesting about them, except for South Dakota. Now, South Dakota is really, really smack the north center of America. And most of it is just flat prairie, barren land for farming, not barren land, sorry, farming land. So it wasn't too interesting either, South Dakota. But once I dove in a little bit more, if you notice on the bottom left corner, there's this location called Black Hills. As soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, that's a pretty cool, name for hills, Black Hills. Why is it called Black Hills? So yeah, most of South Dakota is kind of boring. It's mostly farmland and really, really flat. Nothing really interesting going on there. In fact, its capital, Sioux Falls, is really unremarkable, I would say. But again, putting your attention back to the Black Hills, you can see there, Rapid City is just at the base of the Black Hills. So dove in a little bit more, and you can see the Black Hills is like the only green spot in the whole of South Dakota. And it's got a few mountains, and a little bit towards its east side, if you can see this Rocky Ford and the place over here, those areas are actually called the Badlands. So the thing that captured my interest straight away was the words in this location. You had Deadwood. I hope some of you guys have watched the series Deadwood. You have Black Hills, you have Rapid City, and then you've also got the Badlands. So I started digging in a little, much more into this whole place. And like I mentioned previously before, the Midwest is really boring except for this place. Now the Black Hills, I did not know what I was getting into when I started researching on the Black Hills. It has so much of American history. There's one point in America, in the Black Hills, where they had this gold rush, right? And this whole area at that point of time, early in the mid, was in the early stages of America becoming a country. This whole area was actually Indian territory. It was not part of America. The only reason why it's now part of America is because they found gold in the Black Hills. So you had this gold rush that happened in this point at the early point of America's history. And of course, I think some of you guys probably might have heard about the whole story. If you guys have seen Dances with Wolves, how when the white Americans came into the Midwest, they started pushing and fighting with the Indians, claiming their territories, killing a lot of bison. It's really a really remarkable history once you actually dive into it. So that's the history of South Dakota around the Black Hills, around Rapid City. And if you look at it, right, even currently right now, there was something else that was very, very interesting for me when I researched into it, which was the Sanford Underground Research Facility. So this is that Sanford Underground Research Facility at the bottom right corner. And what they do there is basically they have a Large Hadron Collider, and they do a lot of scientific experiments. So just by picking this location, from being inspired by Midwestern food, and then going and learning about the Midwest, and then finding this particular spot, I found like this gold mine of of interesting things for me to tell a story, to really weave a nice story for my game around. And that's what I will be doing with my game. And also there's other things in that location, which is not too far away, which, like I mentioned previously, on the top right corner, as you can see, is the Badlands. It's a really alien landscape. And on the right hand side, you have this the Mount Rushmore, which generally everybody tends to know about. So it's a very noticeable landmark. If you see on the bottom left corner, around the area of South Dakota, also you have the Missile Man silos. These silos were nuclear weapons that were built around the Cold War time to launch whenever America got into a fight with Russia. But fortunately, nothing like that didn't happen. And also under the ground as well. Under the ground in the Black Hills, you have this amazing caves, which is like, I think one of the wonders was of the natural world. So there's just so much to find in this location. And that was just basically when it comes to me learning how to tell stories, right? But beyond that also is about finding the local delicacies, So like I mentioned previously, researching real life locations really open things up for you, especially if you have some part of your game which is designed around things that can be very specific to locations. So apart from reading the history about the Midwest and also its geographical locations and such, I started looking into food as well. So at the top west corner, you can find a dish which is called hot dish, which is very specific to the Midwest. It's not something that is uniquely South Dakotan, but it's very specific to the Midwest. And I've never heard about it before. What it is just this bunch of minced meats and peas and corn topped with tater tots, and then put it in the oven with a whole layer of cheese on the top. And then you have something that's very specific to South Dakota, which is on the right here, which is called chislik, which is basically beef, which is cut up and grilled and kind of like served like kebabs. And then you also have Indian tacos. Now, Indian tacos are tacos, but it's very, very specific to South Dakota. As you can see how the image here looks like. Rather than normal taco bread, it looks like it's on a bun instead with a couple of things. And then on the right-hand corner, you might look like it's a normal steak, but it's actually not normal steak. It's bison steak. In fact, what they call bison over there is buffalo. And there's so many things, more things that you can actually learn about when you're learning about something in a very specific location. Okay, hold on one second. I just need to. Okay. So apart from that, I also mentioned when it comes to art reference, real life references for art and everything. So we did a lot of research when we were making our game. Even though in our game you just generally see two locations in our game, you only see the restaurant and you see the marketplace. But because ours is a tycoon game, there's no opportunity for us to go outside and roam and explore the world. But we also wanted to focus a lot on narrative. So having a real life location allowed us to imagine like things like where was it Sanford Research Center? If monsters are actually the reason, if Sanford Research Center is actually the reason why the monsters are actually attacking the town, which direction will they come from? And of course, you might also notice the logo for Midwest 90 is based on the Interstate 90, which is the longest interstate road in America, which cuts across all the way from New York all the way to Seattle. And that's how we based our logo on as well. And we also put the location of the restaurant next to the highway. And so it really allowed us to build our narrative around our game, which is just a simple tycoon game, but we could build so much of narrative just based on this real life location. And of course, putting in some of our more creative efforts in terms of like when it comes to the monsters and the lore of the game. Right. So again, real life references. We base our reference, our restaurant on an actual Red Lobster, which is next to the Interstate 90, and that helped us a lot because we could look exactly at what restaurant as a reference, and then start building concept art all around it. So this is our concept art, which is based on the restaurant, and it's not only just the restaurant. As I mentioned previously, it's also the marketplace. Because remember, I said there's only two places in the game which you actually get to see, which is your restaurant and the marketplace. But the marketplace is the place where you interact with everybody, with all your vendors and other people in the town. You go there to buy meat and to talk to people, and then to find out how the story develops. So we looked at other locations in around Rapid City, and we found this place called the Market Health Food Store. And it was also the perfect place for us because it was right next to a railway track, right? And it had a big parking space. So it kind of like gave us like the idea of like how to build how the marketplace looks like. So this is a concept art for the marketplace. As you can see here, you can see on the top right corner, there's the trains where they are. And then we have a vendor that's actually located halfway inside the train. Then we also have this marketplace and also other vendor stalls that are based around the car park. So because the town is being attacked by monsters, everybody is kind of like located in the center of the town where it's safe. So that's why this becomes a place where you can interact with the people in the town and learn about their stories, and also the stories about the Midwest in general. And even if you learn some recipes from the people in this one particular location. So yeah, that was all based on a real life location. So is that it? Well, in terms of developing a game, I think yes. Like I mentioned previously, it allows us to build stories around actual history and real life locations. It also gives us good references for art, and the one I mentioned previously, the local dishes. But is that it? Fortunately for us, we wanted to learn a lot about the Midwest and especially Rapid City. So we went onto Reddit and we started asking the people a lot of questions. The people from Rapid City, a lot of questions about Rapid City. And fortunately for us, a journalist actually kind of like picked up our story because nobody makes games about about Rapid City or the Midwest. It's like I said before, generally people think the Midwest is a very boring place. But we wanted to make a story around a very small location, very close to heart, very based on a very group of Americans who are like the heartland of America, and it paid off. What happened was journalists from Rapid City and South Dakota started contacting us and started doing interviews with us and writing about our stories. And what that did was, fortunately, at the same time, we had just created our Discord channel, and we managed to divert some of the readers from Rapid City to our Discord channel. And that has been very good for us because we can now talk with people from Rapid City directly in our Discord channel. And we can learn so many things from them. They share recipes with us. They share certain things that in fact, the recipe things, someone shared with us in our Discord channel was a recipe during the Great Depression in the Midwest, where people couldn't buy food, so they actually went hunting into the Black Hills, and they were sharing with us recipes for deer, for rat, and other things as well. So it was very, very interesting for us and a very good learning experience for us. And also, plus, we get to speak with a lot of people. We had to get to fact check with those people in terms of what are the things in that particular location. So, but most importantly, what I would like to say when you're doing a game based in real life is don't get sued. The reason for that is because if you're going to be basing things on a real life, make sure you get permissions. You know, say for example, if you want to have a McDonald's or a hotel that is in that location that you're talking about, you make sure you get permission from them. Otherwise, you are going to get sued. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to open the floor for questions.
All right. Questions would be things like so far what kind of sensitivities do you have to look out for when you in the process of making this game? Because I'm sure that you're the audience of the whole town by now, right? They're probably quite interested in it. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So were there anything in particular that you were like had to be cautious about as you were building this alternate world, I would say, based on their town?
Yeah, there were a lot of things because we were basing a lot of what our game is on. Saying, for example, if Trump became the president of America for 3 terms in a row, and we were basing this whole narrative of how America goes into this Great Depression, and one of those and one of the people that we had in our group told us like, you shouldn't mention Trump at all in the game because he will sue you. That's what he likes to do. As soon as you mention, as anybody who uses anything of Trump's branding anywhere, they tend, he will find a way to sue you. So yeah, it's very important if you are going to be basing things on real life locations, is to make sure that you're not doing any copyright infringement or trademark infringement. So what you should do is actually make a game in a different timeline. Like say, for example, if you're talking about GTA San Andreas, that's based on LA, but they don't use the word LA because just by not using the word LA, they can have physical buildings that look like other buildings in real life, but not go through any issue by getting sued. Sorry, did I answer the question?
Yeah. I think that's it. Like in particular, so the president, I mean, using a president's name would be a bit dangerous, I would presume, right? So use something.
You can actually you can like there's this game of Wasteland 3 where they're actually using Richard Nixon, who's actually, of course, he's dead and everything like that, but it depends also on the president. Like if he's the type of person with a history of suing people, then you should not do it.
So look for dead presidents, I would say.
That would be the best way to go about it. But yeah, based in real life locations, like say for example, the road, I mean the restaurant is called Midwest 90, right? And it's based on Interstate 90. That's okay. That's fine because the Interstate 90 is not a privately owned road. It's actually a state, a federal highway. So that's okay. You can do things like that. It's just when it comes to things that are privately owned, you have to make sure you have you represent it properly in the game and get permission.
All right. I also happen to know that you're also looking for specific manpower. Would you like to just give a call out for anyone who's interested in applying or such?
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah. We are actually very much looking for UI designers at this point in time because our game is a tycoon game, and a lot of the experience is through the UI. And we will really appreciate if some of you guys could, like, if you are an experienced UI designer, if you could go like send us your your portfolio, and that'll be great. Or even if you know somebody who actually is a good UI designers, could you refer them to us? That'll be really great, because I think that's one of the things that we are really struggling with. A lot of games, we are using UI designs which are, I would say, flat. But we are trying actually going for a more skeuomorphic approach, which means that our design looks like something like a counterpart from real life. So it's a bit challenging, but we really want the people to be immersed in the game. And yeah, it really be good if we can get our hands on a really good UI guy.
All right. So maybe later I can share your email or something to the audience. Then I'll send through email.
That'll be great.
Yeah. Then anyone interested can get in touch with you. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, man.
All right. All right. You made us hungry, Ray, with all those pictures.
I'm hungry, Ray.
Yeah. Okay. So we move on to our next and last speaker for the day. All right. One Amirul, who is a journalist with Gamerbraves. Right. So not sure. Games media for a while there in Malaysia has vanished when I'm not sure you guys remember PC Gamer magazine and Game Axis magazine. They after a while couldn't operate anymore, right? So it was good to see some games media people coming back and covering this kind of our industry in particular, right? Both consumer and developer as well. So yeah, so One Amirul I'll pass it on to you. How do I? Okay.
Yeah. Hey guys.
All right.
Hope you realized that was me talking shit in the chat earlier. Good to be here. Ivan, thanks for paying for the food that we're all gonna get. Thanks to Kesh's presentation earlier.
Cash blunder.
Sure, whoever's paying, I'm eating. So, hi guys. My name's Juan Amirul. I'm from Gamerbraves, and my presentation is actually going to be in 2 parts, which is why it's called Getting to and Into Video Games, because I was told that there would be 2 different types of audiences here. One, which is people who have an interest in making indie games, and people who might have an interest in writing about them. Now, I will. So first off, what is a Gamerbraves? So Gamerbraves, we are one of Malaysia's leading independent games news sites. We're actually part of a network of sites along with Gamer Santai, One UC, and Gamer Weka. So these are our Malay, Chinese, and Indonesian counterparts. Now for Gamerbraves specifically, we have a more niche where we cover mobile games, anime, merchandise, and the occasional industry stuff. As you can see here, this photo is my favorite thumbnail I have ever made that perfectly summarizes what I do at Gamerbraves. It's a mobile game called D4DJ and a Godzilla collab. Don't worry about it. So this is the corporate mandatory part where I flex hard about my job. So here's some of the stuff that we did. We have interviewed people like Yoko Taro, as well as the director of the mobile Mortal Kombat movie, and the developers for World of Warcraft. We have a bunch of them. I'll be sure to send Ivan the links after this. You guys want to check those out. Fun fact, Yoko Taro interviews, he is funny when you read about it. It's just as funny when he answers your question with a non-answer. Last year, we were also selected as jury for the Game Awards. That was by Jeff Keighley. And on top of that, we also get early access for games like Diablo Immortal. We got the first alpha before the more public one that recently came out, and my personal favorite game, Guilty Gear Strive. So let's move on to the developer portion of this talk. Now, why is a journalist here talking to you about game dev? That's because we want to talk about press releases. As anyone who has already shipped a game or has a good communications department knows, your media communication is pretty important. You want to get those press releases out. So now imagine a completely neutral field, right? Like, we're not accounting for things like how applicable this is to our readers and stuff. in a neutral field, the better quality your press release is, the better any media outlet's chances of covering it is. So what does that mean? What is a good press release? So the first one, the most important thing, we learned this in class as well. If you've ever done a mass comm course, I think they teach you this in press release, in PR as well, is that a press release should basically be its own article already. Like, if you can write it like a journalist, or like an article, I guess, then that's great for us. The other important thing is that the less I have to Google it, the better. Also, plus 5 points if you get the reason I put that photo there. Now I'm going to complain about some press releases with no names, of course. The most important thing with your press release is that the point of it should be clear immediately. Because a lot of press releases, sometimes they like to, they talk themselves up a bit too much at the start. So in journalism school, what we learn is we have the inverted triangle. The most important thing should be at the top of the triangle, which is why you're writing the press release. It's very good that you are the greatest company to ever come out and you shipped 30 billion units within the first 5 minutes of your launch. But why are you writing the press release? Oh, you've got a new game out. Cool, that should have been in the first part of the sentence. Secondly, we love it when you send assets. That's great. If you have it in a folder, that's even better, because sometimes email providers will kind of compress it. So if you have like a Google Drive link or what's the Microsoft one? That one, yeah, Dropbox, that's the one. You have that, that's great. However, if you're a little too eager and make all those assets 4K, that's no good. Remember, the point here is you want to make the journalist's life easy. And if they're all 4K, guess who has to go open each of them up in Photoshop and resize them? Because bandwidth is expensive. The other gripe, the other tip, we don't call them gripes here, we call them tips for game developers, is if your news is embargoed, say so at the start, preferably in the subject line, preferably multiple times in the press release. I mean, again, yeah, because we want to work with you on this. The games media are not your enemy. We want to help you talk about your games. And so if you'd rather us not write about it immediately, then please let us know. Again, preferably in the subject line and at the top of the article. And this is my favorite point in this entire presentation. Be honest about what your game is, because don't try and hide it. A good games journalist will find out one way or another. And at what point of the article completion they find out will determine like what we think about your game. So you may be wondering what this porn story is. Imagine, if you will, a nice Juan Amiral having a lovely afternoon, and he gets a press release from his boss and says, hey, this game looks pretty cool. Looks like Diablo. Looks like Diablo is anime girls. And I said, oh, cool. That's pretty great. And so the article gets written. Now, for SEO reasons, you always want to link to an external source. And so I like to link to the game's website, get some traffic there. And so I go to this website, and oh no, that's a porn game. Like we have left the line behind. The line is in the rear view mirror and it's going away fast. That is a straight up porn game. And I tell my boss this, and we're like, yeah, no, kill that article. We're not. So again, I bet the communications company who sent this press release and didn't mention anything about the porn thought they were being pretty clever sneaking it into my inbox. But we find out. And any journalist worth their salt will find out. So, be honest about it. It's not like you have not every outlet has a zero porn policy, for example. For some outlets, maybe that makes them want to write it. So in a nutshell, please write about our game isn't good enough. I know not everyone wants to hear this, but there's only so many times we can hear, this is our first game, we really want it to be successful. Of course, we want it to be successful too, but you need to work with us. And you also have to remember that as a games media outlet, we will receive large volumes of them at a time. And so sometimes we just don't have the time to get to all of them. And also, please make my life easier. The less I Google, the better. Now, that's the press communications part of this talk. Let's talk about the student portion of this talk. If you recognize the picture in the top right, you probably know that games media has a bit of a bad rep for being bad at video games. I personally do not like this stereotype, but I'm also victim to it multiple times. So what does it mean to be a games journalist? First one, keeping up with press releases. That means having your inbox open, making sure you give games that want to be seen a chance to be seen, resizing their images when they make them 4K. However, just because you're more to the entertainment side does not mean you are not still bound to like journalism stuff, right? So your reporting has to be factual, accurate, unbiased. You can't go out and say Fallout 5 is coming out next week unless you have reason to say so. Someone has told you. Todd Howard wandered into your lab and told you. And the most important, what I feel not enough people talk about is when it comes to reviewing games, your job is to give the game a fair shake. Like, a game may be bad to you, but maybe it's great to someone else. For example, like I am not a big fan of multiplayer first-person shooters, for example. But sometimes you got to review a first-person shooter, and you can't just be, well, I don't like first-person shooters. That's not your review. Your people who want to play this game are going to read this. You have to tell them that. So you have to be objective in these kinds of things. Now, I know this is a very pretentious slide, but I feel like we're talking about what a games journalist does. And this is a quote from an academic journal. I'm paraphrasing an academic journal. I can't remember what it is because I deleted all my uni work. But it is the journalist's job to provide context and understanding to topics. And this is where you can't just base I know I said that a good press release should be enough to just throw in as an article on its own, but this is where you can't really do that. For example, say a graphics company comes out and says, we have made God beams. God beams are the new thing in our product. And you can't just repeat that, verbatim. You can't just say, well, God beams are in. It's kind of your job to explain to someone what is a God beam and why is it important. And I think to that end, aside from writing articles, it is your job to know these kinds of things, or at least put yourself in a position where you can know about these things. The other really important thing about being a journalist is embargoes. Like I said earlier, sometimes companies will give you news ahead of time, and they call this an embargo. So say, for example, Fallout 6 exists. They send me a press release ahead of time, but it says, please don't talk about this until 2024 or whatever. It's usually like a week or whatever. So they say, please don't talk about this until 8 p.m. And it's your job to honor that. If you want to keep being a games journalist, man, please, games journalist person, please do not be a leaky-eyed Luca. Plus 5 points if you get the JoJo reference. But that's trust me, if you break embargoes, you will find that your time in this industry is very, very short. Because surprise, companies don't want to work with someone who is going to agree to receive embargoed information and then drop it. And then break that embargo almost immediately. So a common question I get, how do I get into games journalism? Easiest answer, start like right now. Just open up a blog, talk about your favorite game. Like, I know a lot of people think that, oh, but how will I do it? I never get any codes for anything. Like, you know, I message PR people, they won't send me codes. Well, if you're literally starting from zero, of course they're not going to. It's kind of an upfront, you have to do the buy-in, you know, which means you're gonna be starting off buying your own games and, you know, building up your reputation until companies start essentially valuing what you have to say. Now, there is also the qualification side of this. I'm kind of in a weird place because I first started doing games journalism stuff 2 weeks before I started a mass comm uni course. And but I think ultimately formal education is not necessary, because I think even without formal education, I have friends who don't study mass comm and can tell me why Balan Wonderworld was not a great game. But I think the journalism, it certainly helps. Like, if you're already in a course, don't call up your uni and drop out now because the internet man with the cat ears said not to, that it's not important, because you do learn stuff like that, inverted triangle stuff. And I think it does give you a sense of responsibility, because a lot of people, like when I went to uni, I had a lot of like career journalists, you know, people who've been working since for like decades. And I think exposure to them is a great way to like instill some values in you. Whereas like, yeah, okay, I know you're writing about a video game, but can you do it with some integrity is the point, I guess. And this is where you can find me if you are a game developer, you know, one@gamerbraves.com. Again, can't promise I'll get to everything. I'll pass these links as well. Also, that's my Twitter, at @WAmiralAdlan. And this is the highlight of what I consider like the current highlight of my career, which was the closest thing I would say I did to proper journalism, where I did a story on crunch in the Malaysian games industry. So we talked to a bunch of developers all on the hush and got them to talk about crunch, essentially. I essentially kept this short because I was anticipating some questions, so I hope you guys have some questions. Otherwise, I will ramble off.
Oh, okay. Quick question. Is Gamerbraves, or one of the sister companies, looking for writers still, or reviewers, or content creators of any sort?
We are currently not hiring for full-time positions, but you are welcome. We are accepting interns. Like, and you know, you're welcome to send in your CV anyways, and we'll see what we can do.
All right. Brandon asked, when you say you want to do as little Google as possible, what information do you mean that publishers should include typically? Again,
that's about why are you sending me the press release? Like, okay, let's say, for example, Midwest 90, right? Say Midwest 90 comes out. By the way, that game looks amazing, and not just the food. So Midwest 90 comes out. So then maybe you want to tell me like what's, first of all, you know, the setting of the game. So, you know, this is our game. It's based on the Midwest aesthetic, diners, Interstate 90, all that good stuff. Also, what is the game? It's a restaurant tycoon, so maybe include that as well. If it's available today, how much is it? Are you having a launch discount? Who's publishing it? Did you find a publisher, or are you guys self-publishing? This kind of information is really good as well. And then if your game has a unique hook, like say, for example, sorry, Cash, I'm gonna like throw your game into a mixer here. Say it has a dating sim element. You can date the monsters. then yeah, please tell us about that, because that sounds fun as hell to write.
So free idea for Cash, in case he wants more mini games.
Yeah, let me date the monsters.
All right. Okay, another one. Cash asks, what kind of press release headlines will catch your eye?
Again, the most, if we're talking about like you literally just want to tell me about a game, focus on what sells, like what's unique about this game. So a Midwest 90s case would be, Midwest 90, a was this game based on Midwestern diner culture where you can date the monster. So that's, you want to focus on that. Anything else other than a game announcement would be just focus on what the story is, please.
All right, cool. Hope they got it. Hanli Hong asks, how fierce or tough is the competition in the journalism side of the game industry?
So, as an English site, very. You guys know about Kotaku? Did you guys know about Kotaku today at lunch? Did you guys know about Gamerbraves today at lunch? Yeah, I bet.
I think I missed that one.
No, basically, if you're an English site, it is very competitive.
Oh, okay.
But I think
languages, isn't it? You have Indonesian, you have BM, you have Chinese as well.
Yeah, but I can't get into the specifics of how we make the sausage here, but basically we live in an age where everyone is super connected, and some people don't even need to go to news sites because they can just follow the Balan Wonderworld Twitter to get their news. So like it is very competitive, but at the same time, I don't think you should be discouraged. You should be discouraged by that. I think if you're the type of person who says, well, yeah, but I want to compete, then you might be a good fit for this industry.
All right. There's a follow-up question to Panli's question. How about competition in Malaysia?
I like competition in Malaysia. There are quite a few like English gaming news sites. Oh, hold on. I think my thing has frozen.
Still, is it okay?
Yeah, hold on. My screen just disappeared. Oh, all right. I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think that was, but so there are a lot of sites, but the thing is, a lot of them, I don't know how to say this without getting sued. No, it's just that a lot of them are operated on a hobby basis.
Okay.
So, ultimately at the end of the day, there is only so far you can go if it's not paying bills.
True. All right. So okay, there's one more question, which you can choose to not answer if you find it sensitive. Right? Is how is revenue obtained from game journalism? Are you relying on ads?
Yeah, I am not at liberty to discuss that.
All right.
Sorry about that. But if you can just throw in one other question, because that sounds like a really mean way to end this session.
I think that's about it, I guess, right? So let me see if there's anything else. Non-serious question. Ever thought about having a mascot anime character who reviews games, like Sheparu? Sheparu, yes.
See, here's the thing, right? So right now, I'm most what's this? So I review a lot of these games and stuff, right? I stay awake at night every night in fear of the day a cute anime girl steals my job. Because let's be real, the market for cute anime boy that reviews video games, that's a shallow pool. That's a shallow pool. I wouldn't rely on that to cushion any kind of fall. So the day a VTuber steals my job is oh boy, my therapist is gonna hear about that.
You gotta get into that game, I guess.
Yeah, maybe Calvin can set me up with some voice modulation. Maybe.
Okay, there's one.
For sure. I would love to. I would gladly.
Okay. All right. I think we're gonna wrap up. There's a lot of questions that maybe one last question if you don't mind, right? Which is, why do you want to get into games journalism, or why did you get into games journalism? Yeah.
Oh, sweet. That is a very good question. I think at the base, like at the core of it, and I think this is a very important thing to remember, especially on like the worst of days, like when you've been covering E3 and you're low on sleep and there's like a bunch of reviews pending or whatever. I think the most important thing to remember is that you like games. You like games, you like talking about games. Like, I think as YouTube in particular, there was this huge problem where everyone thought that being in games media only meant being angry about something or being a paid shill. But they forget that sometimes we just like games.
Back to basics, huh?
Yeah, like the other day, you know, I wrote an article about, hold on, let me think about, yeah, I wrote an article about how to deal with Ramlethal and Guilty Gear Strive because she's a laughably broken character and my best friend happens to main her, so I have the unique experience of fighting her 50 times per session. And you know, sure, I'm telling the world that the score is now 154-2, but but it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you're covering indie games, you know, that joy of this is a really cool game and I want people to know about it, and I am with a platform specifically designed to tell people about it. I think that's a lot of the joy of video games.
All right.
And I think that's kind of it.
Cool. Thanks. I'll just end this with a comment that says your cat ears are adorable.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to throw it out there. Someone else has a crush on Kelvin now. So good job, everyone.
Thank you. I'm really honored. I'm flattered. Thank you.
I have to keep the identity secret, lah. All right. So thank you very much, everybody. Let me just exit. Stop the sharing. Yeah. So I think that's all the speakers. Sorry, we overrun a little bit. I think 10:30, but usually Malaysians sleep pretty late, lah, I presume. But we will be sending out an email to ask for feedback and to also compile all the links that the speakers for today have shared with everyone. But most important, I'd like to I'd like to thank all the speakers and audience for coming and spending a Tuesday night, which is a strange time, spending a Tuesday night just to help maintain the community of game development in Malaysia. There was I think at about 70 of you guys at one go. So good job, everyone. So thanks very much for coming for this first iteration. Hopefully there's a second or third, but we will see lah. Right. So thank you, Amirul. Thank you, Mohan. Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you, Sakina. And thank you. I think Tuan's left already, right? But Jahong on behalf of SocialPeta, who was co-organizing this with me. So thank you very much, right? Yeah. So and thank you, Cash. Oh, almost forgot.
Right. Cash angry already. Cash like fuming right now.
Invite me and then don't tag me.
Yeah, Cash is fuming right now. It's like, oh my god.
I'll be one of the dishes in the restaurant. You can chop already. Thank you very much, guys. I think we'll end it here today. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you guys soon. All right. Stay safe.
Thank
Later,
you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.